Mark, I'll start with preparations. How have they been this week going into Saturday's game?
Yeah, been fine. With vagaries of the weather, but hasn't really affected what we've been able to do. We didn't get on the grass today. That was the only thing, but we've got 4G areas that we were able to use, so I believe that service is a little bit better than the pitches at the moment. So we've got some decent work done, and looking forward to the weekend.
What's been high on the agenda in terms of work being done this week, particularly coming on the back of Saturday's performance?
We've accentuated the positives. Obviously, I thought we played well. I think that was the general opinion of our performance at the weekend. So we just touched on what we did well. Obviously, there's certain areas of our play that we can improve. That's always the case. So we mentioned them. We've highlighted things in training, as we always do, and each week we're trying to learn and get better at what we do. So big test of the weekend. Bristol Rovers, a good team, playing with a lot of confidence at the moment on the back of good results, and obviously that confidence comes from winning. So it'd be a difficult one for us, but I think confidence-wise we're in a good place ourselves, so we're looking forward to it.
You spoke about after the game maybe making better decisions when you get into the final third, and you've not really had the time yet to address that area of the field. Have you had the opportunity to do that yet?
Well, that's something that we've talked about, not only this week but previous weeks as well, but not to any great extent, because obviously there were other priorities in my view in terms of what we wanted to do, and making sure that we have a platform to be successful. And I think in that regard, obviously we're keeping clean sheets at the moment for the most part, so that's important for us from now to the end of the season. That's a good habit to have, so we want that to continue. But clearly, if we keeping the balls out of the net at one end, we want to score at the other end. So we can improve that aspect of our play.
Is it the decision making that is the sole thing that needs to be better in the final third, or is there more?
No, it's a number of things. When the team's playing well and the players playing well, then more often than not, there's decisions to make about when to pass, when to move, when to shoot, when to not to shoot. All those decisions become easier to make, but obviously if you're not playing with confidence, then it becomes harder to make the correct decision at the right time. But we're playing with confidence, as I've always said, so I think in terms of decision making, I think that will be an improvement come the weekend, on the basis that we're playing in a good vein of form ourselves. So I think where we see ourselves at the moment is that every game we've got is against good opposition, more or less. So it's always a challenge, but I think we're embracing that challenge. Really looking forward to every game we're playing at the moment to see how much progression we've been able to put in after 6-7 days of work. So that's the exciting part for us in terms of what we're trying to do. I feel we've improved lots of aspects of our play, and I think we probably are just looking at that one big performance, that one big result that brings out all the elements that we've worked on together in 90 minutes of play. So we haven't been able to do that yet, but we all feel it's close.
Is that for you the priority at the moment, that sense of opportunity that remains between now and the end of the season? I think some fans would say that what remains for this season in terms of hopes of going up, fears of going down have been eradicated. So is that the priority really for now?
Yeah, it was always about making sure we finish strongly, and I think people are seeing that our play is getting better. I think that's acknowledged by everybody, and we want to finish with predominantly wins rather than draws or losses. So we want to continue to be positive in terms of what we're being able to achieve. So there's still a lot to play for from my point of view, and clearly guys are coming to end their contracts, and there's any number of them that will feel that maybe they still have to make a statement in terms of their future at the club. So that's all in the mix, and that enables performance levels to be maintained. There's no question of us just tailing off and fulfilling the fixtures and moving on to next year. There's plenty that we can work on and get better at from now to the end of the season.
You mentioned your opposition on Saturday, Bristol Rovers. What do you make to them as a side, their recent form? A bit of a surprise result given the wins that they had going into the Carlisle game.
Yeah, that was a setback for them, but I have to say they're a good footballing side, you have to say. Joe's gone there and clearly making an impression in terms of the way they're playing now, and they get it down, they play out from the back, they've got good threats at the top end of the pitch as well, so it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, and aligned with the confidence they've got from winning games, that's going to make it doubly difficult, but still feel excited by it. I feel it's another test for us, another measure of where we are at the moment, and we'll take it for that and judge ourselves against a very good team.
Does it suit you, that environment, better at the moment, given the recent form that you've had, the wins that you've had away at Forest Green and Hartlepool? It seems to be that you have better form on the road at the moment.
Well, I debate that, but I think we've had better results. Yeah. That's a given. But I think, two away performances have been really good. I think our home performances have been close, if not on a par. So, we just want to continue to keep hitting levels that we're happy with and try and improve the baseline of where we think minimum requirements of performances, and we'll keep raising the bar. They're all cliches and what have you, but they all apply, and if we can raise our performance levels, that's going to help us.
What's it going to be like for you facing Joey Barton, a former player of yours, first time in the dugout? What are you expecting about that?
I'm not too sure. Myself and Joey worked together for a short period, but it's good that he's gone to the other side of the track, so to speak, in terms of going into management. He's clearly doing very well at the moment, so it's always good to see people you've worked with getting an understanding that sometimes there's a lot of problems you have to solve that you can't discuss with players at the time, so he's seen both sides of it now. So I wish him well. It's clear that he's got a good group of players there, and they're playing very much for him.
Do you see managerial traits in players when you manage them?
You can do in some. Other players surprise you sometimes when they go into it, but you can never tell. I think it's not just about being the loudest voice in the dressing room. It's about understanding the game, and it's about understanding what's required given the opposition you're up against and the circumstances you find yourself in. So that's a learning process that comes from experience as well. And the more you do this job, the more you're exposed to similar situations, and you like to think at times the appropriate response to those situations within the 90 minutes. So you're always learning. That's the key to it. You don't ever think that you've got all the answers, because that will come and kick you up the backside if you ever start to think like that. So it's a great job. I'm really pleased that I'm back in. You don't realise how much you miss until you actually come back in, and it's been a really enjoyable period since I come back. And
speaking of learning, you've had a handful of games now in League Two. I just wonder, what are the main things that you've taken away from what you've seen, and if there's anything that surprised you about level?
I think probably the amount of differences in terms of how many teams approach the game in different ways and with different methods and different formations, different structure to the teams, formations, whatever. At the top level, there's certain structures and formations that are prevalent, but I seem to face different formations and different ways of playing, underlapping centre halves and overlapping full-backs and underlapping wingers, and so it's all there for you. It's a challenge in that regard, because every team I've faced so far has had a different problem that we needed to solve, either before, during, or certainly you like to think you get over the line when you win that you have solved those problems, but it's not easy. But I think the most obvious thing is that there's real talent at this level. Maybe that wasn't as clear to me looking from afar. Didn't appreciate the amount of talent that there is at this level. So that's been a pleasant surprise, not only within the group I've got to work with, but obviously seeing good talent at other teams as well. So yeah, that's probably been the biggest surprise.
Just away from that, we heard from the owner this week who's spoken to the media just about his thoughts and feelings about the club right now and the vision in where it's going. I just wonder how much contact you've had with the owner in your time as manager at the club.
Well, I spoke to him before I signed, or briefly after I signed, and I spent time with him after the last game. Yeah, and we're all of the same view at the moment. We want to take the club forward. We want to be realistic in our ambitions, but we've certainly got ambitions. Certainly next year there will be expectations on us, and I haven't got a problem with that. I've worked with expectations before, and I think fans of football clubs and anybody connected with the club, I don't want to be told that we're just going to hope for the best. We've got to have an ambition to get better and get out of the league, and that's certainly my intention next year. I want to be in a position where we have that opportunity. But with that comes expectations, and if you fail, you disappoint people. But hey ho, I mean, that's expectation goes along with success. If you're successful, then expectation helps.
Have you been handed any assurances in how that may look next season, and most prominently, budget size going into the summer?
No, not in any great detail, but I've got a fair idea in terms of what level we can go to, and the level of obviously finance we can offer players. So I'm aware of that level. I think we'll be competitive in regards to budgets without a shadow of a doubt. So it's up to us to maximise the talent we're able to attract with the money that we've got, and I think we've got a lot to offer. We've got the best stage in this league, in my view, in terms of platform to play your football in front of a great crowd, a great stadium. So I think that's an attraction for players. They want to play in front of big crowds and have that demand of crowds on them. So we'll be looking, obviously, to bring players of that ilk who would thrive in that atmosphere. So those are the types that we would like if they're available at the right price.
Yeah, when does that groundwork start, if not already?
No, we've had discussions since I've come in terms of what's out there, what's in the building, what's the potential of players that may want to move or out of contract, and looking at their options. And we just got to present ourselves in the right manner and make sure that when players are thinking about their future and thinking about where they're going to apply their trade, then the thought of playing at Bradford City is high up in their list of teams that they would consider. So we've got to make sure we're in the frame, and at least in the room when those discussions are decided. Yeah,
and when you arrived at the club, a lot was made of the network that you have in the top flight, and connections maybe out of this country as well. Is that a realistic avenue of consideration in terms of players that could be?
Well, yeah, I've got a lot of contacts in the game. I've got obviously connections with obviously people connected to clubs at a higher level that may well feel that we're now a viable option for some of their better, possibly younger players to come to us in terms of loans and what have you. But it won't just be loan players that will view us as a good option. I think, as I've already said, there's lots of very good players at this level who maybe are coming out of contract and would see us as a good option for them. So I like to think that's what's happening at the moment. We've had the indication that's the case, that now, because maybe we're playing slightly differently, we become more attractive for a certain type of player. So that's encouraging, and I think come the end of the summer, once all the deals are done, I'd like to think we'll be in a good position.
I'll just finalise with team. You shouldn't forget about that as well going into Saturday. How are you looking squad-wise?
We've got lots of players, I have to say. We've got almost a clean bill of health. We've got a couple that are just getting dipped in, dipped out, and like suddenly Angle is back with the group, but he's not fully up to speed. And Awis is the same in that regard. The only disappointment is that Tom Elliott is struggling with his knee. He had an issue with it, and it's a little bit more difficult to overcome than we thought initially. So he's going to be seeing someone next week in terms of just getting to the bottom of the issue with his knee. So that's the only disappointment in terms of injuries. The rest have pretty much resolved themselves.
Are we entering season over territory for Tom, or is it too soon?
We will have to wait and see. That discussion will be made on Tuesday, and we hope to have good news, because I would have loved to have been able to give him some game time, but that hasn't been the case, unfortunately.
And Finn, does he come back into the squad once he's back from international?
Finn's back with us today. He's training well. He's had a good experience. Maybe not resource-wise, but going up against good quality obviously will help his development. So yeah, he looked in fine fettle.
Thanks for your time, man.
Okay.
And those who came back in last weekend, Elliot Watt, Alex Gillian, they've come through unscathed.
Yeah, like I said, we've got very few injuries, touch wood. We had something like give or take 24 players this morning, so you have to be a little bit creative with the sessions and make sure you get your numbers correct and separate them into the right numbers of groups. But yeah, but it's great to see everybody out there. I think it's important that everybody is available, so that gives me more options. It's probably the best situation we've had since I've been here, because obviously there's quite a few in the treatment room when I first arrived, but a lot of the injuries have resolved themselves now.
I just wondered as well, you said your expectations of this level before you came here. Do you think maybe there's too much emphasis in this country on top level football and not enough in terms of media on the lower levels of football?
I think that's just the way it is. There will always be more media interest in the Premier League and the Championship, and obviously the teams that feed the Premier League and who's going for promotion, whatever, and relegation from there. So there's a lot of content there that they can fill their hours with, so and their pages. So at times we get a little bit forgotten about at this level, but that doesn't mean it's not a competitive league. It's very similar to all the leagues in the English pyramid. It's very competitive from top to bottom. The top teams can be beaten by the bottom ones and vice versa. So I think it's just the strength of the English football pyramid is that talent can cascade down to teams in League Two and the National League, because there's so many good players in this country.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, just Nathan from the Telegraph and Argus. Sam was off on his jollies this week. It's very lovely.
Where's he gone?
He's gone down south. He's got somewhere like Guernsey. He's got Angles. He's got a cottage down there with his wife. Yeah. Exactly. No, you mentioned there there's 24 sort of players though, which is a brilliant number for you. But with sort of promotion and relegation sort of off the table, is it the perfect time almost to have selection headaches where you can experiment with different players, different formations, etc.?
Yeah, there's that opportunity. There's players that I haven't seen yet that are coming back to fitness. So yeah, there is that opportunity. You've got to be careful. I can't do wholesale changes because that's not allowed. Because obviously teams we're playing against are involved at the top and the bottom. So there's directives that don't allow you just to change whole teams 1 week from the next. So there will be changes in certain games, but that will be based on myself being able to have the opportunity to see the guys' hands, being able to see. They obviously need to get up to speed before that. There's any number. We were actually may well taking some practice games behind closed doors just to get some of them up to speed, so that if I do or have the opportunity to put them in, they can do themselves justice because they've had enough game time leading into it. So we're going to arrange maybe one or two behind closed door games just to enable them to get up to speed so they can perform if needed.
Obviously, you're unlucky not to get more from a Newport game. Obviously, you beat the leaders, Forest Green away. Does that kind of show Bradford City are sort of a match for anyone in this division, really?
Well, I think we're not far away. I think that's the thing that we've taken from it. We're not saying we can beat anybody, but we certainly are competitive now. I think next year the intention is to be even more competitive than we are at the present. I think that's a realistic goal goal and target to try and move towards. Like I said, these games are invaluable for me. I've said that time and time again, and it doesn't change. It's an opportunity for me to see what I've got, which players will help me next year, which ones may feel that they need to move on. So there's a lot of conversations to go on and a lot of football to be played before all the decisions that need to be made are made before we set on the path of a new season next year.
And obviously Bristol Rovers sort of like Newport in that congested playoff picture. I mean, when you go into a game and they've obviously got some real talent, do you focus on individuals from the other side, or are you very much focused on a team perspective from when you come
I think at the moment, if I'm honest, clearly we have a game plan for whichever opposition we go up against, and I've touched on the fact that different teams set you different problems, and so you've got to be prepared and have an understanding of what they can throw at you. But for me, really, it's more about how we perform. I think if we perform as I know we're capable of, then we'll make it difficult for opposition teams that we go up against, irrespective of which way they shape up or what talent they have in their group. If we can play well and dictate to them, then it means we're in the ascendancy and they can't get a foothold in the game. So that's our intention every time we play now, really.
Fair enough. And obviously you mentioned a little bit earlier, you obviously had to play on the 4G today with the weather conditions, etc. And obviously that's not what you're playing on Saturday, but like you said, with the way you like to play a more attacking style, do you think that is a benefit that you got some time on the sort of artificial surface day rather than playing on the grass?
Yeah, you need to get the work done. You don't have to spend hours and hours out there. It's about maximising the benefit of getting out there and obviously making sure that you're prepared physically, but you still want, as a player, I know I wanted some indication or some insight into the opposition in terms of what they want to do against you and what you need to do against them to cause them a problem. So we try and paint those pictures for the players to make sure they have an understanding of who they're going up against, what they don't like doing, what they do like doing, and when you give players that information, then they can, for the most part, sort it out themselves and understand what's required.
And also, finally for me, you've come obviously down to League 2 level. Obviously, you're a player that played at a top level for many years, and obviously often gets said that sometimes top players don't always translate to top managers because maybe the players that they've got at other clubs can't do what they're able to do. Have you found that you've been impressed and be able to really take in and sort of do things in the training sessions in games that players at a high level have been able to do under you in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. The same things that we're presenting to the players in terms of plans of play, drills, phases of play, all those things I've used before. I've worked with top level players. They don't break down just because I'm playing or I'm setting them up for players that play at League 2. They don't break down to any great extent. I think I've mentioned before, it's more about decision making. I think the difference, the top players more often not make the right decisions every single time. The lower you go down, less so. That's the only difference really. Everybody can head it, kick it and do whatever you want technically wise, but the skill is knowing when to use it.